We have had a really busy summer so far with lots of claims activity, lots of storms that have been coming through. We just had one here in the area of Minnesota in the last, probably 3, 4 days. Talked to other states where we work with clients, and it sounds like a lot of the Midwest was hit hard with that last storm. So, with that being the case, I wanted to take a minute to address some of the things to consider if you're considering a claim. And being in the heat of the middle of summer, it's often the most common time where we see claims come up, especially for homeowners, owners of business properties, and also car owners, auto owners. So first thing, it's funny. I looked on Chat GPT just out of curiosity. What would they recommend for looking at opening a claim? What's the first step? First step, they said, is look at your policy. Couldn't agree more. It's important to have an idea, what does my policy cover? But the second step, which I would argue is the first step, is contact your agent. Okay, there's many claims that happen on a regular basis where people don't contact their agent. I think for many reasons. One, they probably are like, I don't need to talk to my agent. I got this figured out. I can quick do it on my phone in 2 seconds. Or, you know what? At this point, my agent is not in the office. It's like 7 at night. I'm just going to go ahead and make the claim. But it's so nice to be able to get a chance to check in with your agency or your agent that you work with for many reasons. I'll highlight just a few. One, your agent's going to help you understand what coverage you have on your home. They can't tell you yes or no, it's covered because that's the adjuster's work and that requires a license. But at the same time, they can give you an idea, an inkling. Yeah, is this something that generally is a covered scenario or not? Right. Number two, your agent's going to help you understand the impact on your personal situation. So we're in a much different climate when it comes to insurance rates and qualifying for insurance, such as home insurance, building insurance, than we were just 5 years ago. If you had contacted me 5 years ago in 2020 or 2019 and said, hey, can I get a quote for my home? I would tell you the number of carriers in, for example, the state of Minnesota, where we're located, that are offering home insurance was pretty much everyone. Okay. Now it's many carriers are saying, well, we only offer home insurance up to this limit of home, or we don't offer insurance at all. Um, and to give you an idea, I've reached out to many new carriers in the last bit of time here, and everyone tells me the same thing. We're at a point where we're not only not bringing on new companies or new agencies that we work with, but we're at a point where we currently have a desire to actually cut back the number of agencies we're working with just because we don't have room for the amount of business that agents want to bring in. And we're kind of stuck right now with the really tough climate in Minnesota for insurance and weather. So we're kind of at this weird place in the Midwest and in many states around the country where insurance is hitting a growing pain. There's going to be some disruption, some changes. But what I will say is if you have a claim that were to come up or a potential claim, contacting your agent, they're going to be able to help you understand in your personal situation. Number one, what's your coverage? Number two, how is this claim going to impact me? So let me give you an example. Recently had somebody who had a claim that was right around, I think it was $1,500. In the end, it was a home claim. I want to say, yeah, home claim. In the end, their deductible was 2,500. Didn't make sense for it to. It, unfortunately, couldn't be covered. Right. So in that case, if they contact their agent first, then the agent can help them understand. Okay, maybe what you want to do before you open the claim, because we're in such a tough environment with home insurance, we'd hate to have you have a claim on your history that's going to affect your pricing. Why don't we first look and get some ideas on estimates, right? So then we go get estimates, and then we find out, well, honestly, the roof is damaged, but it's like 3 shingles. So it's probably something easy to fix. Okay. Then it doesn't make sense to make a claim. Or, yeah, the roof is damaged. It's 30 shingles. But based off the coverage you selected when you set up your policy, the coverage is going to be somewhere under 2,500. Okay. Then at that point, it's like not worth opening the claim, right? So your agent's going to be able to help you understand in your scenario, whether it's a roof, whether it's hail damage on your car, whether it's looking at a water loss in your house, all sorts of things. Your agent will be there to help advocate for you if you have a good agent and help you understand what it is you set up when you set up the policy with them. So, although ChatGPT says first thing is you should look at your policy, which I agree with, but I would truly say the first thing is really contact your agent, because that's why you hired them, to be able to interpret for you what it is you have, right? I mean, you don't have the time necessarily to read through all of the pages of your policy, although it may be fun night reading if you can't fall asleep, um, because it might help you fall asleep instantly. But your agent is there to really help you understand. Okay. Um, Next thing, after contacting your agent and assessing your situation with your agent, next, if it looks like it's a potential probable covered scenario, again, your agent won't be able to make that call, but the adjuster can. Then you want to say, okay, it's probable that it might be covered. Now I want to make sure I understand what's the cost, right? So now I'm going to bring my car to the shop and get an estimate. A lot of shops nowadays are super happy to give you an estimate literally over a quick snap of a phone picture and send it to them. Another thing is if I have a building that's in, some sort of potentially covered claim scenario, get a contractor out to look at it and see, do you think this is something that I should make a claim on, or you think you could cover this for under my deductible? My deductible is 5,000, for example. So say I have a commercial building, my deductible is 5,000. Do you think it makes sense to make a claim if the total cost is 7,500? What do you think? I would argue no. I would argue it's definitely not, unless you're truly in a scenario where it would be really hard to come up with the 7,500, which 7,500 is a lot of money. I'll be the first to say. But really, when you think about it, you're only getting coverage for 2,500. So if you think about it, a $7,500 loss, $5,000 deductible, you're only getting coverage for 2,500. That's going to affect you from a claims perspective, in my opinion, so much more than if you had just figured out how to cover that additional 2,500. Because what you're going to see is the next year you're going to have a nice rate increase, most likely, right? Again, that's not for me to decide. Your carrier would decide that, but that's just the insurance environment we're in. I have seen some policies double in price in the last year with minute claims. I just had a client we looked at and they triple in price. Okay, very small claim they had. So carriers right now are really paying out a lot in a lot of states. And so what they're all trying to do is figure out, okay, how can we stay viable, stay sustainable, and stay in operation? Well, one of the ways we have to do that is we have to charge more for our coverage, because they're, in many cases, like in 2022 in the state of Minnesota, carriers paid out on average for property, I want to say 190% of what they earned. So what they made in client payments, premium payments, they paid out 190% of that. So again, that can only happen for so long before carriers have to start saying, okay, we're closing off coverage in this state, or we're looking at totally revamping the way we do business, or we're not bringing on new agencies to even work with because we just don't have the capacity to do it. So first thing is contact your agent. Second thing is consider your particular situation, right? Looking at your own finances, looking at the estimate that you were able to get from that shop, say, and or that contractor that was going to work with you on the bid. And once you look at your personal situation, your finances, and that bid, then you can get a better idea on, okay, next step, do I make the claim? Now, how long should I, if I decide I need to make a claim, how long should I wait? A lot of times people will say, oh, I'm going to wait on it because I'm just so busy. I mean, they won't say that, but they're kind of like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. You don't want to wait too long, because policies, especially on the auto side, do require you to report the claim pretty quickly. And that's just to avoid fraud scenarios. But even on a home policy, you don't want to wait a couple years and then claim it, and people have done that. I've seen it happen. And then they get mad if it's not covered. And you got to say, wait a sec, well, why'd you wait 2 years, right? So you gotta make it a priority, and the carrier is going to make it as much priority as you do as well. So yeah, those would be just a couple of big pieces on the initial part. Next, documentation, super huge. So number 3 is document, document, document. So for example, say I think I might have a roof claim. The number one thing I'm going to want that roofer that came out and looked at my roof to do is document. Okay, can you write me a simple letter on your letterhead telling me you think I have storm damage, if that's the case, right? And take pictures and show me with specific X's or circles around where you think there's storm damage or hail damage, right? So that would be huge if you have documentation like that. Then when we open the claim, you can send it to your adjuster on the spot And they'll look at that and be like, you know, I'm not even going to do an assessment. I can see the case here. Let's just get it done. They still might want an inspection, but they might just pass on it. Another thing, documentation. So, for example, we insure a lot of clients that have businesses, and a lot of our business owners happen to be contractors that have tools. Document receipts for your tools you purchase if you have tools coverage. I always tell people, look, if you can, take a video or a picture in front of your home or your business residence with your tools. Why? Because if I don't have any sort of receipt or credit card proof of this tool I bought 5 years ago, at least if I have some sort of visual of like, look, I truly did own it. Here's my home or here's my place of business with a picture. It's better than nothing. It's a starting point. Not saying the adjuster is always going to say that'll work, but it's a much better starting point than I have nothing. And it just so happens I'm reporting, say, theft on my tools. Makes it kind of hard when I have no backup on that, right? So that's another thing is document as creatively as you need to if you don't have, traditional receipts, things like that. Same with documenting your roof age. So I have various scenarios where people buy a new home, they call us for insurance, we help them out, they don't know the roof age. We talk to the sellers, and the sellers, don't quite know for certain. We look at the city records, it's not reported. So now you're like, okay, so if I have a roof claim, how's that going to be covered if I have no clue on the age of the roof? So before you buy that home, figure out what the sellers say. Look, one thing we need to know in order to make this purchase happen is what's the year of the roof? Why is that so important? Because if I have a roof that's over 15 years old, most policies that are brand new today are not going to cover that roof at replacement costs in the state of Minnesota, at least if they're over 15 years old. Even some are as little as 14 years old. Some go to 16 years old. But once you get past that age, then it's what's called actual cash value or payment schedule coverage, which just means they take out what it costs to actually replace it and they take depreciation out, right? So now you're looking at a much lower payout. So that's worth gold for you as the homeowner if you're purchasing a home. Same with a commercial building. You got to think the same thing. Okay, if I have a commercial building and I am buying it and they don't have a clue on the age of the roof, work with that seller very closely to figure out what's the age of that roof. I need to know this in order to purchase the building because my insurance company needs to know as well. So going to the top, you want to contact your agent. You want to look at your personal situation, right? And say, do I have the finances to either cover this on my own, self-insure, or do I think I need to claim it? And if so, what's the estimate I'm seeing right now for how much it's going to cost to fix it? Does it still make sense to claim? Okay, it does. Okay. Next thing, documentation. Do I have thorough documentation, right? And if I don't have the documentation, then I'd recommend talking to your agent and saying, hey, in this case, what would you recommend? Your agent should be able to give you an idea. And then from there, typically by then you're ready to actually go ahead and file the claim, right? In other words, if all signs point to filing a claim, you file that claim. I would strongly urge you to stay in close contact with that adjuster. Adjusters nowadays, I'll be honest, are overworked, usually not enough adjusters per carrier. And so what you're seeing is it's kind of the squeaky wheel gets the grease a little bit. And so you really want to be as consistent with communication with your adjuster. A lot of adjusters text now. Of course, they email, phone calls. I would argue that adjusters 5 years ago were really quick to answer the phone. Now they're much quicker to answer emails and texts. But still, do your best to communicate great with your adjuster. If your adjuster is not communicating, usually on most communications, there's a supervisor you can call. I would say before you even do that, call your agent. Your agent may be able to get the adjuster right on board again and just make it quicker that way instead of getting another party involved like the supervisor. And then from there, your adjuster should be able to help you to get the claim done. Now, if you're struggling with communication with your adjuster, again, go back to your agent. That's who you set up the policy with. That's part of the reason they're there. Your agent should have a team or at least themselves to be able to help you when there's communication struggles. And then the final thing I was going to say is make sure when you get your original letter from the adjuster, especially if this is a property claim like a home or business, that you really thoroughly read that letter. Because so often, and I've had this happen many times, rightfully so, because we're all so busy, someone will call us and say, look, we claimed this. And in the end, they are saying that they're only going to cover like a third of what it costs. And then if you read, the whole letter, it says in there very clearly, oh, but make sure once you've taken these first actions to fix it, that you stay in communication with us and give us proof that you finish it, and we'll pay you the remainder if it's a replacement cost coverage. So again, it's going to depend on your coverage, but so often people get that first check and they're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. They only gave me like a third or half of what it costs to fix this. This is horrible insurance, right? Well, then if you talk to your adjuster and your agent, they'll be able to help you understand in your case, if you truly have replacement cost coverage, then you probably have another check coming once you fix everything, right? So those are some important things to consider. The final thing being keeping detailed records. So in other words, if you do the roof replacement, make sure they're taking out a permit, right? I mean, that seems obvious, but I can't tell you how many roofs I get done where a permit is not pulled, and then we can't give them the credit on their insurance for having a new roof, and then they run into coverage issues down the road because there's no definition on when the roof was replaced. Make sure to get that inspection done. That's super huge too. And then make sure that if you talk to an adjuster, for example, when in this process, don't hesitate to document your conversation, because adjusters are humans too. They do their best, but they're talking to a million clients every day. And so you got to remember they're doing their best they can, but they might miss one or two things once in a while. So if you document, hey, talk to adjuster, they said they'd cover this, this, and this. And here's the next steps. And also a week from now, when you come back, you remember kind of what you need to do, right? So those are some tips on considering when you open a claim, on what you should consider when opening a claim. And of all those tips, honestly, the number one thing I would say is contact your agent, because your agent is going to be able to really help you remember all these things we just talked about. And they're there to be your advocate in this process. So, and the number two, I would argue, right next to contacting your agent first, is contact or having a great relationship and communication with that adjuster. That goes so far in this whole process, because if your adjuster is communicating well with you, and you're communicating well with your adjuster, this process is so smooth. And I can't tell you the number of wonderful claims experiences I've seen where people are just in great communication and everything gets done like that. So thanks so much. My name is Benjamin with the Tyson Escobar Agency. And if you're looking for commercial insurance, life insurance, home insurance, we're here to help you. We'd love to be your partner in making sure that all is protected that's important to you, starting with your family. So thanks so much. Appreciate your time.